be talking about leases, and this is a longer course. And so the first part of the lease is learning who the parties are to the lease. So that could be a buyer or a seller, or it could be a landlord and a tenant. It could be any number of items, but a lease is a stronger form of agreement than a license agreement, which, depending on whether you're a landlord or a tenant, it's a much lighter touch than a full lease. So in the lease, once you've figured out who are the parties, a lease has to have some value to it. And so this is the value clause, which is that for good and valuable terms, and often that can be something like $10, that we are now going to enter into this lease. The next part is a description of what is being leased. So you have to determine whether it's going to be a square footage, whether it's going to be a suite, whether it's going to be a building or several buildings, any one of those items. But somehow there has to be an address or some description or physical description, could even be description from the tax records of what is being leased. The next question is one that's generally referred to as term. And term has to do with how long the lease is for. And at this point, it's good to remember that in commercial leases, that there really are no rules. And so when it comes to term, you can do anything you want in terms of term. For example, let's say you have a space that's in shell condition. It could be that the term allows the tenant to go in, or allows the landlord to do certain repairs for the tenant according to the tenant's desires or the landlord's desires, that can push out the term. And so in term, you have two parts that you have to think about, which is lease commencement, which is when does the lease actually start, and then rent commencement, because often there can be a period where could be a month, could be 2 months, could be a year, depending on the shell condition, or could be even longer if you're building a building from scratch, so from the ground up. And so the term can be extremely simple: 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. However, it can also be very complex. And often what I see is something like 5 years and 2 months. And so then you have a lease commencement, but the rent doesn't start commencing for 2 months, which allows the tenant to get out of their space that they're currently in, move into your new building, the new building that you own, and fit out, move all of their items, do all of their online items, their social items, everything with, like, whether it's Google or Bing or another service, that you want to make sure that you know exactly, like, when is the term and when does the term come up. So that's the first part of our lease, and we'll come back shortly with the second term.